Okay, so just a recap of what we did in the last one was we created a standalone search form so we could reuse it over and over again. This HTML document is fairly straightforward. First and foremost, we declare our method of get, then we say what URL this should be going to, right? This is a little bit different than a posting like what you would do on your login, right? So in login, we had a method of post. We also had this token here. And the action here is inferred to be in the page that it's on. So if you don't put an action, it just says go to current page or current URL. Of course, that's not actually what it says, but it goes to that page. So we have to actually put this action in to make sure it's going to our search view that we created specifically to handle those things. So no matter where we put the search form, it will on our web page, it will go and do this search. The other nice thing about this too is you can actually paste this in. So I can share this search with other people if I wanted to. So those are a couple of the really cool things about this. The last thing is I don't have to worry about CRF tokens. That is the token that you saw in the login. This right here, you don't have to worry about that with a GET request or a GET method because you're not really going to be saving data on the back end. The data that I did save, I did mention that we could save it, is this right here. Now that may or may not be that secure, so there's other things I would probably have to do to actually making sure that that query is a safe query to actually save in our database. Or we could treat it as a string, so no matter what, it's not actually being executed of any kind. It's just really marking, hey, this was looked up. That's pretty much it. Okay, so now what we need to do, though, is actually improve this querying. Right now, this is not the greatest query. It only searches in the title. It doesn't search in anything else. It doesn't search in any of our other fields and give us back some sort of response. So this is introducing the Q lookups. So we're going to import from Django.db.models. We're going to import Q. So Q, not to be confused with query here, it's just the letter Q. We can actually make some lookups for it. So the lookups we could do, let's just say lookups equals to Q, and we can do that same one we just did, which was title I contains query. And then if we use a pipe here, we can have another one. So I'm going to do description I contains query. I'll grab this lookups and put it into our filter here. And then one last thing is just add .distinct here and do the query itself. Distinct, what that does is if there are multiple objects matching this. So say, for instance, our title and description both have that same query. There's a chance that our query set will include that same product twice. So this just removes those redundant products if they exist. And these are just how you can do the lookups. And of course, you could put these directly in here and you might see it like that in other places, but we're going to keep it in just like that. And now I'll refresh in here and I got t-shirt. Awesome. That's great. Now if I search, what if I searched awesome? Hit enter. Now I got this t-shirt being an awesome shirt, right? So it actually searched in the description as well. So let's add awesome to something like hat. This is my awesome hat. I'll hit save and continue and refresh in here. Now my query returns 2 items instead of just the one. So that's just a more robust query. So we can come back into our product models and take a look at these. And we can see various things that we might consider searching, like price, whether or not it's featured. This one's a little bit more complicated because it's Boolean, but really like price, description, and title, those would be the ways on how you might end up doing a search. Okay, so hopefully this right here brings up a question in your mind. The question should be, how come I'm writing this inside of my view, whereas something like products featured I wrote as a model manager? Well, hopefully you were thinking about that. If you weren't, no worries. We actually want to move this into being in the model manager. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out the Q itself. and go into that model and bring it in here. Still importing that queue. Go back into the view. Go ahead and grab these lookups. And we're going to make a new model manager. And we're going to define it as search. And it's going to take in self and query. And the lookups are based off of these, right? So it's the name of the field, 2 underscores, and then something like I contains or some sort of lookup. You can also just do title equals to that, but I contains is something that I find better for searches. Now, if you're doing an exact lookup, then you probably wouldn't use I contains. You'd use I exact, or you would just use equals to. Then all we're going to do here is return self.getQuerySet, filter, and lookups, right? And then still want to do the distinct ones. In fact, we also might want to have in here active, right? So I want to make sure I'm returning my active projects or products. The next thing, right off the bat, you should be like, hey, this looks great and all, but what if I wanted to search on my featured ones? Or what if I wanted to search somewhere else? Yep, you want to make it a custom query set as well. So we're going to say search, query, and this time it's just going to return this. So I won't even do it here. Instead, I'll have it right up here. And we're going to just return self.filter, lookups distinct. And now it's .active, .search, the query. And now we can use this on various places. Like in my featured call, I could use it .featured and whatnot. So now down here, instead of doing all of this stuff, we would just do search and query. And we'd get rid of that. Save it, refresh, still working. I search for hat, also still working. That is how it's done. Okay. So if you have any questions on what we did with doing more robust querying, let us know. Most of our search function is actually pretty much done, right? So I'm not going to really improve much on this. The only things that I might end up doing is improving on, let's say, for instance, the price, which you could write it in as this price I contains query, right? So it's going to do a lookup on all 3 of those things in our database to make sure it's actually existing. And then it's going to do that search, right? Oh, we got our lines here. We want to put this into a parentheses so we can make them in multiple lines. So once you put it in the parentheses, you can do it just like that. That's kind of why that's there. So let's go ahead and actually just do a quick search by a price, $39.99. Search, and what do you know? We've got 3 products with the same price. Obviously, I don't have them displayed, but the search is still working. And again, it's fairly robust. Now, the last thing was, I don't want to run away from this just yet, but if I do a search for t-shirt with a dash, it works. If I do it without one, it does not work. So how would I go about actually making that item work? Well, the next thing is actually adding some product related tags. So I'm not actually going to create the tags just yet, but what I will say is if you have tags, the query lookup would be something like this. So we would say the tag name I contains query. So that is essentially what that lookup would look like if there was a foreign key to this tag. Not to worry, we will actually be showing you how to do this so we have better searching in the next one. That is, I don't want to adjust my query too much. I'm not going to do too much processing to that query. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have other markers to make it easier for me to do lookups. So me as the user or the actual owner of this website, I would consider these tags ways to look things up faster than just the title or the description. That's essentially what I'm talking about. And basically then when I start designing my tags, like I would do t-shirt, t-shirt, t-shirt. Those would be a few different tags that I would end up writing. And then this query right here would take those into account. So that's something we'll actually do in the next one. So stay with us.